Good day. This is Paul at the House of Graber here on the 12th day of May, 2024. And coming to you on this Memoirs of a Farmer Boy platform. This is the platform where we talk about real life experiences of today concerning Revelation 18:4. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, "Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues." My goal is to share things that possibly can bring your journey out of corporate into private, a little more into focus, and help you along the way. So, first of all, everything that we bring forth on this platform is protected by and safeguarded under and subject to the laws of nature and nature's God, otherwise known as the heavenly courts, the courts of ecclesia, or the ecclesia court. And all the material, printed, audio, video, intellectual property, administrative or otherwise, everything that we bring forth here is subject to the highest courts, the heavenly courts, the laws of nature and nature's God. And this is also subject to the private registered copyright of the House of Graber. Now, this material, whether what do they call it? Bootleg a copy of it, which you can do, you can download it. But wherever it goes and whoever's hands it is in, it is still subject to the highest court in the universe, the courts of heaven, and our Almighty Creator, the God that we serve. So today is a very special day, and the main topic of today is confirm the living soul. Okay, confirm the living man or woman, the living soul that functions here in this flesh and blood temple. So this is a very special day, Mother's Day. Some people, and I could see why this would be a point. Some people say, we don't need to make a holiday out of all these different things, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Secretary's Day, whatever it is. And I would agree with that to an extent because it can get, it can get twisted out of context of what is really the focus. Is it some kind of dramatic thing to get our focus off of what a mother is actually about? Are we focused on that, or are we focused on the excitement of the quote special holiday on the calendar? So I just know this, that I'm married to a woman who is a beautiful mother, a beautiful spouse. She's a master at taking care of the house, cooking, cleaning, gardening, and mentoring our young ones. She's done an amazing job. So my hat is off, if I had one on in the first place. My hat is off to, and my congratulations to not only my woman, but all the mothers. Not only on this day, but every day. And, there's mothers who are adoptive mothers. They may or may not have biological offspring of their own. They're still fulfilling a role. And there's also the ones that neither have they officially adopted anyone, nor do they have biological offspring of their own. But wherever they go, they are fulfilling the role of a mother because young ones cling to them and love them. And the reason they do is because these beautiful females they're just that kind of being. They're that kind of soul that they love these young ones and they nurture them and they encourage them and they have fun with them. And whatever it is that they do, it's like a magnet where um, wherever they show up, the young ones they just take to them naturally. I want to congratulate those as well. Everybody has their role. The role of being a mother is a very, very magnificent role. Now, there's also, the kooks, I'm not talking about just women, I'm talking about people in general, the kooks that like to twist things out of proportion. I saw some article or some post recently about, out of the however many people are on planet Earth, supposedly 8 billion now, but um, all of them have been born from a woman. And the context of the post was that, so you better respect the women. Like the women are the ones that did it. Well, I wouldn't argue that they had the toughest part of the deal, giving birth or bearing a child. I'm not going to dispute that. But before you go, this is for the women, before you get up on your high horse, keep in mind that none of that would have ever happened without a male. None of that would have ever happened without a male. My point in all this is we are equally valuable. Equal value. Man and woman have equal value, in my opinion. There's people that, just the other day, I was watching a radio show by KT, and he was showing some of the ads that were ran like, 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago. Basically trashing the women, keeping them under the domination. So I don't agree with that. I do want to say that the natural order of things on planet Earth is that there's a balance. It just naturally is so. Male, female, negative, positive, one end of the stick, the other end of the stick. Sometimes we look at it as good and bad. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And I might even add that by the natural order of the universe, for every action, there's an increased and magnified opposite reaction. So there's a balance, and the women fill a role that cannot be filled by the men. Men fill a role that cannot be filled by the women. It's the way it's designed. I mean, it's not about, I see, I'm kind of a little bit off key from what my main message is today, but yet it all pertains to the same end. If you look at media, radio, TV, print, religious media, yeah, the religion is the worst. They've been pitting men and women against each other. men against women, mothers against drunk drivers, these and that against the cops, blacks against whites, the Russians against the Americans, Democrats against the Republicans. What a freaking joke. While they were all being controlled by the same, handful of people, the puppet masters pulling the strings of the puppets, and they pull a string and it goes, I promise to do this, and it's a freaking joke. But it's a way to keep the people divided. It's called divide and conquer. Pitting men against women and women against men has been going on for years. I just know in my lifetime, and who knows what's happened, prior to, or that I'm not aware of consciously. I just know what I've seen. And men being convinced that the woman that they're married to or the women that they're around are the reason for all their problems. And women are convinced that the man they're married to or the men that they are around and associate with are the reason for all their problems. So if this really was true, then we could split a line down, the equator. Let's use the equator. And all the men go south of the equator and all the women go north of the equator, and everything would be fine. Everything would be fixed. Pretty preposterous idea, especially since they're all chasing each other. It's just the dumbest thing. It's the dumbest thing when you think about it. When we blame other people for our problems is a dumb thing. I've done it. I'm sure you've done it. We've all done it. But it's still not saying that people are dumb. I'm saying it's a dumb thing to do. It's a futile thing to do when we blame others for our problems. So there's a balance, yin and yang, in and out, up and down, forward, backward. There's always a balance. There's always two ways, two ends to the stick. Same stick, it's just one. But yet there's, assuming that it's a round stick that's uniform, it's an equal and opposite, or equal parts on opposite ends of each other. So are we really that divided? Are we really that against each other? I don't think so, because if you try, I've never seen anybody do this, but I guess you could try it. You try to live without whoever you're against. Like if you're against women, if you're a man like I am, and you're against women, just seclude yourself to where you never, ever, 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 ever have anything to do with women. No, you can't blame them anymore, because now you've separated yourself. If you blame women for your problem, or if the women blame men for the problem, they're immediately connected to that. Otherwise, you wouldn't blame, you wouldn't be associating. So there has to be a balance. There has to be some kind of point where you say, I got to start right here, and realize that men, women, whatever the so-called opposite is, it's all, men and women are equal in value. Not getting into an argument about equal rights. Our rights come from God, our creator. There's no pathetic corporate agency called the government that can give us rights. If you go begging to them for rights, then you've given away your rights already. So I don't want to get into equal rights. I'm saying there's equal value. I have yet to see a man that is worth more than a woman, and I've yet to see a woman that is worth more than a man. They're both created by the same creator. And they were made to walk side by side as a team. Some females have strengths that others don't have. Some males have strengths and talents that other men don't have. That's true. But in general, the men fulfill a role in this, journey called life. In general, the women fulfill a role. And instead of getting all tied up in a knot about, how wrong the other side is, why don't we just, learn to work, like walk together as a team? It's really sad because men don't know, and again, I'm generalizing based on society, people, the masses, whatever you want to call it. Men don't know how to talk to women or about women. If you're calling your woman, or any woman on the planet for that matter, if you're calling them a bitch, shame on you. Shame on you. And I don't even ever want to hear about, oh, that's the cool thing, some women like that. No, I don't want to hear any of that. If they like it, it just means that they are also brainwashed and perverted. That's pathetic. Women also don't know how to talk to or about men. If you're talking about your partner, your spouse, your man or your woman, however you talk about them while they're not present is how they will show up when they are present, because you've created that. So, having said all that, happy Mother's Day to all the women. It's an amazing thing. Happy Mother's Day. Blessings to you. Love and light to you. There is a special kind of beauty in the female sector of society, the female sector of mankind, women. There's a special kind of beauty, and we need to acknowledge that. I, for one, will acknowledge that. And it's been twisted and perverted to where it's been made something that is shameful, and it should not be that way. So happy Mother's Day to all of you. So I want to talk a little bit about confirming the living soul. That was going to be my main point when I started this podcast, confirming the living soul. When you get drug into state courts or federal courts, for that matter, any of the courts of the corporation, the United States corporation, and all the subcorporations and agencies thereof, they're all linked to the Vatican, and or under the crown as well. And when you get pulled into those courts, which when I say courts in this particular in this case, I'm talking about what often is referred to as kangaroo courts. I don't pretend to know how that term came to be, actually. We call it kangaroo courts. They're actually a private for-profit corporation. They're not a real court. They are a banking / post office institution. And when you find yourself in there, it's because you are under some kind of contractual bondage agreement, etc., already before you get there. If you weren't, then you would not be in there. I assure you that. You've already got some kind of contractual thing, what they see as a contractual agreement, contract. Otherwise, you would not be there. And you are also seen as an infant and incompetent, a subject of the state, or as we call it sometimes, a ward of the state. And when you find yourself in these courts, you are there because there's an arbitration going on. There's a supposed negotiation of the stipulations of the contract, a negotiation of the terms of the contract. The contract already exists, but you may have done something that violates their ideal, how they look at it, how things should be done, because they've got statutes and codes that regulate those contracts. Now, keep in mind, man has unlimited right to contract. That includes all men. So when those men create a business, a private for-profit corporation called Marshall Superior Court 2 or Kosciuszko County Superior Court 2, 3, or circuit, whatever court you're in, it's a business. It's a private for-profit corporation. You can find the SIC number on manta.com. You can find their Dun & Bradstreet number. It'll tell you very clearly. And when you find those sites and these businesses listed, the judge will be listed as the manager of the business. Yeah. First time I found that, I looked up Marshall Superior Court 2, Marshall County, Indiana. Business manager. They gave the guy his name. So I picked up the phone and I called the court, that particular court clerk. And I said, who's the judge of Marshall Superior Court 2? And they, blah, blah, blah. Same name. So he's a business manager. And, if you go in there and you call him by that, you might be up to a challenge, or you might be faced with a challenge. I don't know if you're up to it. If you're not up to it, you shouldn't do that. But you will be faced with a challenge, an explosive one. So the reason you're in there is because they have records in their archives showing that you are still an infant and you're incompetent and you are unworthy of handling your own affairs. So they're doing it for you. Now, I'm not saying that's righteous. I'm just telling you what is. I'm not saying that because it was my idea, because it wasn't. I think it's very devious and evil and sinister what they're doing. But they are doing it because, as he says in Hosea 4:6, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. So they have records in their on your master file. Basically, there's a master file that they can look at, and that's where the information comes from when they do a background search or they pull a name on their database. And the federal agencies have a little bit different database and different access than the state. The state police have different access than the city cops. It varies a little bit, but it's called your master file because everything you've ever done, or your mom and dad did it for you prior to you doing it. It's all a master file that's built ever since the time you took your first breath, maybe even before that. So they look at you and they see the records that say that you are an infant and you're an incompetent. Okay. Now, if you are at all familiar with how most traffic ticket cases go, or court cases in general for that matter, if you are even a little bit clued in on how those things normally play out, you will appreciate what I'm about to tell you. If you don't, if what I'm about to tell you is not significant, then it's okay. It just means that you're not familiar with what's going on. And that's okay too. If you never ever have any experience with these state courts, good for you. Because most people do at some point, or a lot of people do, not most, but a lot of people do. So there's a gentleman that I've helped, tried to help, and he's a little bit out of control to an extent per the normal way that things are looked at. He's a loose cannon. He's gotten 4 or 5 traffic tickets in less than 6 months. The charges range anywhere from operating without a valid license, operating a vehicle with an open alcohol container in the vehicle, not having having the wrong plate on, in other words, it's a plate that's registered to another vehicle and he's got it on the wrong one, or he doesn't have it registered at all, or he has it improperly displayed, which I'm guessing, because I know the guy well enough, I'm guessing it might have been laying on his floorboard or hanging on the roof. I don't know. Several different charges. And in every one of these cases, 4 of them are already, what they call decided, have a default judgment. Every one of them, he never showed up for court, hasn't paid a dime, literally has done nothing, absolutely nothing. So what they do is they end up suspending his license, and then the next ticket rolls around and they suspend it again. He doesn't show up for court, so they just suspend his license. They get what they call a default judgment, and they're saying that if he would pay a lot of these tickets are running anywhere from $150 to $250 that it would take, and they're telling him on there that if he would pay those tickets, that they would reinstate his license. In other words, there's no need to go take some silly classes on the BMV website and all that. If he pays the ticket, they'll reinstate it. But he hasn't. And I haven't seen the actual case files, but I've looked online and there's verbiage there that I've never seen before. Now, I didn't say that it never existed before. I said I've never seen it before. And I've looked at a lot of cases on the Indiana My Case, where we look up. Also, you can look them up on DocsPop. I've looked at a lot of cases, including my own, and I've never seen anything like this. Leading up to this bench trial, they give him a whole long list of instructions and details and how he can show up for court online or in person and what he has to do and I mean, they're very detailed and usually you don't get that online. It's just, blah, blah, administrative event, barely anything. And then they come back and say, oh, failed to appear, default judgment. Now this is, I cannot explain to you how big this is. If you don't get this, then I can't explain it to you either. The defendant is not known as an infant or incompetent. They're stating that on the record. And it's online for the whole world to see. The defendant is not known as an infant or an incompetent. I know why that is. I know what happened, and I know exactly what kind of documentation and records that have been created for them to say that about him. And this is very, very unusual. A guy doesn't show up for his bench trial or for a court hearing. The first thing they usually do is issue a warrant. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've heard these judges, these clowns in black gowns, they're always threatening people. If you don't show up for court, we're going to issue a warrant for your arrest. I mean, that's the billy club control that they swing. They carry that. They haven't issued one warrant for this guy. And never showed up for court. Doesn't show up for a hearing, doesn't show up, nothing. Fact is, from what I can tell, he's kind of oblivious to what's going on, which I wouldn't recommend that. But the bottom line is he's not committed any harm. He's not committed any crime. He's done no harm. Traveling down the road, not harming anybody else. There's no crime. And all traffic tickets are they're just bogus as heck. There's no crime committed. Fact is, as a side note, just so you know, of the millions and millions and millions of people in prison in this country today, less than 10% of them have committed a crime. And even the ones that have committed a crime, they are being held under fraudulent processes. They were never lawfully put there. There was no lawful due process to put them there. Now, whether you believe that or not is irrelevant to me. I just told you a fact because I know that's how it works. So this man, even though he's kind of he's kind of sloppy and, just all over and he's oblivious to what's going on. But the fact is there's no crime been committed and they haven't they haven't lifted a finger to put him in jail. As a matter of fact, when he came out of prison, he got into some trouble with the people he was staying at. He got onto some crap that he shouldn't have been on, and he got kicked out. His parole agent knew that he was on stuff, and normal situations, his parole agent would have put him back, and they would have picked him up and put him in cuffs and hauled him off to prison again immediately. They just kind of, rolled with it, and everybody just kind of tried to help him. And so that also, I wasn't quite aware of how it was playing out at the time, but I can tell you now that that was because he is not seen as an infant or an incompetent. There are records in place that have clarified that he is a living soul. He is the living soul in the flesh and blood body. The all caps trust or estate that they're going after is something else. That the division has been made. They knew that all the time, but the thing is, there's a record on file now. They've been notified that he's a living soul, and that his mother conceived and bore him and brought him into this world as a living soul. That's something very different than the entity that they are targeting for commerce. But if you don't clarify that, and if you don't make a record of it, then the silly record they have will stand. You can go in there and argue all day long about your constitutional rights. Listen, I don't have any constitutional rights. I have God-given rights that I came into this life with. These rights existed before there was any constitution written ever anywhere on planet Earth. These rights are eternal, and they are given to us by our Creator, and they always have been here, and they still are. One of them is the right to contract, unlimited right to contract. The reason those things have to be written in the Constitution is to say to the corporate agency, you don't step past this line. This is a fence for you. You got to stay on that side of this fence. That's not where we get our rights. If you think your rights come from a printed document, you are in trouble. So, unlimited right to contract, that includes the judges, the lawyers, we the people. It includes everyone. We all have the unlimited right to contract. So if you're under contract with these barflies and these judges, administrators, business managers, and the state, the corporation, if you're under contract with them and you go in there and you start spewing about your constitutional rights, when in reality, those are the rights that protect them. Unlimited right to contract. You're under a private contract already. And if you go in there and you try to drag some other thing in from the outside that doesn't pertain to that contract, it's not going to end well. That's why people get steamrolled in court. They do not comprehend. They do not comprehend what is going on. And neither did I at one point. And there's still a lot of things I don't comprehend. But I do know one thing. If you weren't under contract, you would not be in that court. Period. So confirming the living soul is a very real thing. It's called redemption. And I'm not talking about the redemption secured party creditor bullshit that thousands and thousands have followed. That's not what I'm talking about. I don't need to go to any corporate agency to ask for a certificate or some kind of code to enter in under and subject myself to their crap. I don't need that. My rights and my position as one of the family of our Creator is higher than any of those codes. There's not one of those codes or statutes that apply to me. Not a single one. I don't know how many codes and statutes there are, and I don't really care because not one of them apply to me. Not one. And I encourage you, if you think I'm crazy in saying that, or if you think that's a little bit of a stretch, I encourage you to go find one that applies to a living soul. There is none. So confirming and creating a record. See, the reason, let me give you an example. It's called a smartphone, Android smartphone, Galaxy S10 something. That's my phone. Okay. Now, not considering any kind of paperwork I have with AT&T, if it's just, or let's use something that's not tied in with any account. Scissors. This is my scissors that I keep on my desk. There's no account number with that scissors. There's a, I suppose if I looked long and hard, I might be able to find a serial number. It's a Fiskars stainless, but I don't know if it has an account or a serial number or not. But the fact is, I own this. Okay. But if I take that and I take it into town and I drop it on the sidewalk and I walk away from it, there's a good chance that somebody else is going to pick that up. Maybe they'll pick, let's assume that it's somebody that actually needs the scissors and they're going to take it home and use it. Okay. They have what's called abandoned property. Now, let's say that I carve my name into this, my name and my phone number into this scissors. And I make it, or I might have it in a pouch, with my name. And there's like a brass plate on the pouch, and it has my name and phone number and, email, ways to get a hold of me, but my name is on it. Okay, then, or let's say there's no phone number, no email, just Paul Graber, brass plate. And I take it into town, I drop it on the sidewalk, somebody finds this, and they're like, oh my God, there's a name, but there's no, like, they just left it here. So they go and they put a notice in the newspaper, you know, little bitty, one paragraph, one column wide. Found scissors, Fisker's stainless scissors, with the name Paul Graber on it. Please reply to this ad within 30 days if this is yours. Well, maybe I see the ad, maybe I don't. There's a good chance that I don't. Maybe I'm not even aware that I lost the scissors, but either way, I haven't seen the ad. The 30 days rolls around after the last advertisement, and I don't report back to these people. They've left their contact information in the newspaper ad. So now, after 3 weeks at plus 30 days, they go and they create a public record saying it's abandoned property, and now it's theirs. And in law, that's actually legit, but it's used for nefarious purposes because they've done that same thing with your stuff. Everything that has your name on it is looked at as abandoned property because you've never shown up to lay claim to it. They haven't claimed it. They can't because their name is not on it. But they're administering it and using it. They're using the scissors. They're renting this scissors out. They're charging other people to use it. Matter of fact, they might even charge me to use it now because I haven't claimed it. So the reason you get into all these, everything costs you, is because you haven't claimed your estate. You haven't claimed your property. It's abandoned property. And you haven't even shown up to say that, you know, pinch me, check this out. I'm warm body. There's blood flowing in my, you know, there's a heart beating right here. My mother bore me and gave birth to me, and I landed on planet Earth. I'm a living soul. Now, this all caps entity that you created based on my showing up here, that's something else. And by the way, that's been taken over and moved into private ownership and being administered in the private now. So leave your hands off. You haven't created that record. That's why you're still being administered as if you were incompetent and an infant, unable to take care of your own stuff. You're not even fit to have the scissors. So confirming that you are a living soul and it's a completely separate thing from this trust, that's huge. That is huge. Because even though they know that the record doesn't show otherwise. So once we change that record, then your master file will change. And they're going to look at your master file and they're going to say, oh, crap. This guy has shown up. We can't do this to him or her. So that's all I have for today. Hopefully, this has stirred some gray matter, if nothing else. Think about it. Confirm the living soul. Create a record that tells the whole world that you are a living soul. I mean, you and I know it, they know it, but you haven't created the record. If you find value in this video, this broadcast, do subscribe to our channels, like the video, share it, comment on it. We are on YouTube as Memoirs of a Farmer Boy, on Spotify, and also on the Rumble. Now, my beautiful woman Carol has a channel on YouTube, Homesteading Made Easy by Memoirs of a Farmer Girl, where she shows you all kinds of valuable tips on how to compost, gardening, processing beef, processing, growing and raising and processing chickens, which we're in the middle of right now. Uh, Lots of baking and cooking and just stuff that she's a master at all of it. She's done it for her whole life basically, and has become very good at it. So there's also Torch Phase, a YouTube channel where our son Michael does hand forged knives and has even started making some swords. Beautiful work. So go check that out. All those links are going to be in the description of this podcast. Thanks for listening. Have an amazing day, and until next time.